Run, hide, mask up, don't touch anyone, wash your hands. Wash your hands again. Fear has become one of the greatest enemies to our peace and well-being. Fear everything might be the simplest summary of 2020. Although fear may be the most pressing enemy, its weapon of mass chaos for 2020 was a pandemic infection. A microscopic package of protein and genetic material broke through our defenses, infecting millions. Fear of COVID-19 burst the calm of our reality and sent billions scrambling for cover. Was mass hysteria a reasonable response? Should we be afraid of coronaviruses with fancy acronyms? What's my point here? Our fear of COVID is a more deadly enemy than the virus itself. COVID-19 doesn't deserve the media hype it has received. But it is a real virus that has killed real people and deserves an appropriate level of concern. The fear of billions of people is, however, more dangerous. To overcome the ultimate danger of this threat, we must first understand the viral threat and respond with wisdom. After overcoming the virus, its disruption of the old normal, we must address society's underlying tendency towards fear. If the fear is left lurking in the background, then the next flu season or the next so-called pandemic will trigger the same fearful responses. We'll simply hit the replay button and relive the insanity. If the fear is not faced, we cannot respond successfully as individuals or as a society. The very nature of our reality is that fear thrives in the darkness. Initially, fear appears insurmountable as it lurks in the shadows. Then such fear becomes contagious as it multiplies and grips more people. The cumulative effect harms all of us, even those of us who have resisted the mass hysteria. That is how stampedes of people can trample lives underneath. That is how threats of a lawsuit can close down churches and businesses. That is how whole countries shut down and starve economies. Hello, I'm Dr. Eric Potter, functional MD. Vanderbilt trained me, but life shaped me both personally and professionally. Some of the greatest lessons which shaped my care of others have been walking through my own family's health trials. We have battled immune issues and faced fears of losing loved ones eye to eye. Beyond that, in 20 years as a physician, I've added to these firsthand experiences the privilege of walking alongside patients in their own trials. In caring for both children and adults, board certified in both fields, I've walked through many storms of many immune-related diseases, fighting these diseases as they attempted to rob life and living from patients. I learned to combat physical effects with biological interventions and to help my patients face fear and her sister emotions through spiritual care. I've cared for patients from all demographic groups in multiple settings, from hospitals to clinics, both in the U.S. and abroad. Regardless of who faced the threat, the same principles of biology and spirit applied. These battles were often difficult to fight within the bounds of conventional medicine alone. This led me to functional medicine, so I could better understand the battles and apply winning strategies to restore the whole person. With that calling to move outside conventional medicine, I founded Sanctuary Functional Medicine over 6 years ago. There, we strive to lead others to overcome both their health challenges and their health fears. We daily work with immune system conditions and fearful spirits. During the early part of 2020, as I watched the COVID pandemic panic ensue, I realized that the pandemic fear was overblown. It took some time. It took extensive sorting between good and bad sources of information. But I ultimately realized that fear was a greater enemy than COVID. My knowledge of the immune system assured me. I longed to disarm the fear that I saw spreading and destroying lives. But it took time to develop and prepare this message of hope. Just saying, "Do not be afraid," was not enough. There were too many voices shouting, "Be afraid! to get through to others. Today, I share the first fruits of overcoming fear's effects and invite you to join the movement to disarm fear of identified and unidentified immune threats. I am blessed to share this with you and with as many as will listen through you. Let's change the paradigm together. Again, even with my MD degree, my just telling a stranger on the street or on YouTube to not be afraid will not magically dispel their fear. You can find countless experts with their video clips and quips, promoting everything from apocalyptic predictions to miracle cures. Nearly all begin with some nuggets of truth and facts about the situation. Most present credentials supporting why you should trust them over others. But your first two video clips will agree only if you hit replay on the same video. Otherwise, by the time you've listened to your second or third outspoken expert, you immediately discover disagreements and unsettled controversies. You need a means of distinguishing the true and the beneficial from the not so true and the unfruitful options. So that is why I'm not just asking you to just trust me. Do not just take my word for it about COVID or any other immune issue. Allow me to equip you to discern on your own. And then do not expect others to take either my word or your word as sufficient proof when so much is at stake. Our most effective solution to the problem of disinformation is to learn, to discern, and to spread this message. I share my understanding and knowledge with you so you can discern for yourself and then share that with others. A movement in which thousands, even millions, better understand their immune health will effectively fight both the actual infections and the fear that such infections can engender. This wisdom is a gift that becomes a part of life. Yet, you can give this gift away to others without losing it. In fact, by giving away discernment, you bear more fruit for yourself. The more neighbors who understand and reject fear, the more people who will stand together against unwise public health decisions. The more neighbors who can engage our leaders with wise counsel and counter the biased sources of information, the less likely that others' fear can wreak havoc in your life, in our state, or in our nation. By shining light into the darkness and multiplying the sources of that light through sharing, we all see more clearly to care for ourselves, our loved ones, and our neighbors. This is a vision of a future worth pursuing. Such a movement requires more than a vision. It requires a plan capable of bringing the vision to fruition. Sharing that plan with you today for the first time requires my starting at the top and working down to the details. For such an undertaking, we begin with inventories. We need a list of what list we need. In other words, we need to know some basic facts. For immune prepping, we need to know if our defense team is present, who is on our immune team, and what does each team member bring to the effort. Next, we need to know if someone packed the equipment for our immune team. What vitamins and other nutrients are needed for proper immune function. Finally, we need to know any other factors that might hinder or augment our team. What saboteurs might get in our team's way, and what reinforcements from nature or even from pharmaceuticals might augment our defenses. Beyond just having inventories, we need a system to discern how to apply this knowledge. We first assess health symptoms and signs. We must discern if our team is ready. We must discern if our immune team members have the necessary supplies for the work ahead. We must discern if any saboteurs are hiding in our bodies. We must discern which reinforcements fit our current battle and when to use them. We must be familiar and practice in coordinating our team and the reinforcements. With these inventories of knowledge and discernment, We must then apply what we have learned to our unique situation. Knowing how to read a map and knowing where you are on the map does no good if you don't move forward. We must take action, supporting and directing our immune system. Why are these inventories and their applications critical? We fear what we don't understand, the unknown. And that fear presses us to make choices that may not be the best for us. Decisions made in the dark carry a high risk of falling short of success. Inventories keep us on track and shed light into the unknown. Having inventories without application, however, does not lead to success. This knowledge and these skills of discernment have immediate benefits. You can begin to separate truth from propaganda, truth from marketing gimmicks. You can respond by shining light on your fears and begin to weaken their grip on you. You will avoid the real health pitfalls and develop confidence. Furthermore, even if we are not afraid after having prepared ourselves, we may be affected by the fear of others who are sharing in the situation. The collective fear of others may constrain us or force us to act against our desires. Crowds and their hysteria may trample our opportunity to apply our knowledge and discernment. Our own fears are hard enough to overcome. Changing other fears in the midst of their panic is practically impossible. Even before panic sets in, changing them requires serious expertise and dedicated effort. By prepping yourself with knowledge and discernment that you actively apply in your own life, you will not only overcome your own fears, you will lead others in overcoming their fears also. Leading yourself and others requires standing against the pressure of a fearful world. The world and its media voice habitually report what we call morbidity and mortality. They tell us how much damage and death a particular infection or any disease causes. For example, the leading worldwide infection, tuberculosis, infected about 10 million people in 2018 and killed about 1.5 million people. By the time you reach the other end of the infection, morbidity, and mortality list, much less the additional threats from other disease categories, you could become frozen in your tracks, hopeless that you will survive another day. The numbers seen by the end of the year's tally to doom most of the world's population. Some people consider living in a safety bubble. Instead, we should respond with an aware and prepare approach. By knowing more about our own immune defenses and our enemies, the better our chances of victory. We would never carry a weapon, but choose not to use it when a robber attacks. Why possess an immune system that we don't equip and use to its fullest? We will have a greater chance of victory in the infectious attack. We also better our chances of not being deceived by the media hype or marketing magic tricks. Either of these goals, self-care or fear prevention in self and others, makes immune prepping a worthwhile endeavor. Together, they make it critical. With that vision before us, let's take the first inventory of our team. Our immune system is comprised of various cells. Cells are the basic unit of animal life, able to multiply and carry out specific functions of life. Our immune cells are specially designed to carry out specific tasks for our bodies. These tasks include distinguishing enemy cells from our own cells, maintaining barriers to prevent the enemy from breaking into our bodies, killing enemies that do enter, starting the healing process after the battle is over, turning off the inflammation, and more. Different immune cell types are designed for different types of invaders and different battlefields. These immune cells also coordinate the defense with other cells through an elaborate system of messengers. My immune course goes into much greater detail, but a short list of immune cells includes the following: macrophages, dendritic cells, monocytes, natural killer cells, B lymphocytes, T lymphocytes with several subsets, and many more. These cells can be grouped into two different immune subsystems as well. The innate system acts as the first responders. They see their microscopic world as good or bad. They attack the bad and alert others to the enemies in their midst. Dendritic cells, natural killer cells, and our complement proteins are major parts of this system. And then the adaptive system responds next with a more focused approach. Their cells and processes target specific enemies with laser sights. Rather than the innate system's grenades and carpet bombing, the adaptive system is primarily composed of our B cells and T cells. Understanding the basics of how these cells and these systems were designed to defend you will greatly enhance your ability to defend yourself. Do not believe the hype that says we are defenseless or at the mercy of infectious attackers. Your daily task is to optimize the intricately designed system you already have and use it wisely. You can then share this basic understanding with others so they don't have to be afraid of our microbial enemies. And we do have real enemies. We live in a fallen world where tiny, even seemingly invisible microbes lurk ready to harm us. Yes, they are dangerous opponents who should be taken seriously. Drug-resistant bacteria inhabit our world. Viruses and other microbes are constantly mutating, sometimes into more formidable foes. Parasites swim around waiting to hijack our bodies for breeding grounds. Yes, some can cause considerable harm, even death. World history has been shaped by various infections like plague, smallpox, and more. Family histories are still cut short by outbreaks of tuberculosis or flesh-eating bacteria. Movies and books have been written about such pandemics because there's a reality behind the fictional accounts. The media report on these diseases not just because they attract ratings, but also because they are real events. But they are not invincible enemies from which we must flee. Our immune systems were designed to defend against each of these enemies. Some defenses are better than others, but they all continually work in our bodies. Beyond these built-in systems, the world around us offers what I would call reinforcements, which we can use to augment our defenses. Various herbs and chemicals can be harnessed for our immune benefit. Therefore, we do not have to surrender. We do not have to raise a white flag and retreat. We do not have to shelter away and hide in fear. Instead, we should study our enemies. Knowing their weapons and tactics helps us to prepare. Such knowledge helps us recognize when they are attacking. We discern so we can then respond. Different enemies and different battles require different responses by our systems as well as different reinforcements. For example, viruses. Specific viruses have probably garnered more media attention in recent years than any other microbial enemy. Sure, flesh-eating bacteria and brain-destroying parasites have their moments in the spotlight, but scan the stories. On average, you hear more about flu's yearly worldwide tour or intermittent pandemic threats. Viruses can be more contagious, stealthy, and dangerous, making their storylines more exhilarating than the daily ongoing march of bacteria. Who is this virus enemy that gets so much attention and triggers so much fear? Viruses are not even alive by some definitions. To be alive in biology, something must be able to carry out normal life functions. One of the critical functions for life is reproduction, the ability to make copies of itself. Viruses actually need other life forms to provide the machinery for reproduction. Without this help, They are just genetic material wrapped with protein and/or fat molecules floating around. This is why some scientists don't consider viruses as fully alive. These microscopic packages carry instructions for hijacking the other life form cells in order to reproduce. The instructions are coded in either genetic RNA or DNA, depending on the virus type. The genetic instructions are physically carried in little packages of assembled proteins, which protect the instructions from breaking down. Some have fatty layers over the proteins as further protection. Once the viral packages find a cell that they can attach to, they use some mechanism to inject the instructions into the cell. Within the other life form cell, the instructions start directing the cell's machinery to make more packages and more genetic copies. As these viral components are multiplied, the invader's instructions also direct the assembly of these two components into full viral copies. They are then released from the cell to begin the process again. This insight only goes so far in telling us how the non-living virus can reproduce without other life forms' help. Knowing what symptoms result or what diseases develop requires more. In simplest terms, a virus which infects the liver but not the lung will never cause pneumonia. From another angle, some viruses smolder and don't cause as much destruction of tissue. Others kill their host cells quickly and cause more rapid and extensive damage. Look at COVID-19 for a moment, the latest media star sending ripples throughout the very fabric of society. This virus starts with RNA genetic material. It is grouped with other viruses called coronaviruses, thanks to the crown-like shape they have under a microscope. The protein coat includes a shell that prevents the RNA from being damaged. It also includes regularly spaced spikes made of proteins. These protein spikes enable the virus to attach to specific proteins on our cells. The primary human cell surface protein appears to be a receptor for ACE2, angiotensin converting enzyme, a normal messenger used by our bodies. When the spike protein attaches, it changes shape, enabling the inner RNA genetic material to be inserted through the cell membrane. Then the viral RNA, the same genetic molecule our cells use to code for proteins, is used by our protein-making machinery to make viral copies. Some of the RNA directs our machinery to make more shell and spike proteins. The COVID RNA is packaged inside the shell and is released when the cell bursts. Millions of virus babies can be produced from one infected cell. To make this cellular contact in the first place, the virus must be transmitted from one person to another. For COVID-19, this appears to be primarily through respiratory secretions. This means the saliva, phlegm, and nasal secretions from another infected person. Some lines of research do indicate that it can be also spread through the GI tract. As all this occurs, our immune system patrol makes its rounds looking for any signs of intruders. Our system can recognize viruses before they enter and can identify infected cells in the midst of reproduction. When natural killer cells discover an infected cell, they try to eat the viral cell before it releases more virus copies. Between our body's destruction of the virally infected cells and the cell's rupture from the viral growth itself, many cells die. This leads to varying degrees of inflammation. For COVID-19, many cell types possess ACE2 receptors on their surfaces. The lungs and the intestines are primary targets for COVID-19's effects, as they have higher concentrations of the ACE2 receptor. COVID primarily causes lung disease and some GI symptoms. However, with COVID and with other viruses, secondary effects occur beyond the primary cells infected. In some individuals who are infected, neurologic, hematologic, renal, and other effects also occur. We are still researching how all this happens in COVID-19 infection. Without going into this much detail for other viruses, I can state the following about viruses in general. They are semi-living, microscopic collections of genetic material with some type of protein and/or fatty protective coating. The diseases they cause depend on which organisms they attack and which cells they infect in those organisms. Their diseases can range from slow and minor to rapid and deadly. Different viruses can infect different organisms, from bacteria to plants to humans. In all cases, they have different means of traveling from one host to another depending on their type of protective coating. We could walk through similar explanations for bacteria or parasites or fungi as well. Each microbial enemy has its own means of spreading and infecting other organisms. Besides, knowing our own immune team and understanding our enemies, we need to understand what can cause our systems to falter and possibly succumb to our enemies. We live in a fallen world where obstacles, missing supplies, and the need for outside help may lead to enemy victories. Right now, toxin saboteurs are probably undermining your optimal immune health. Right now, many of you are suffering from hidden deficiencies preventing optimal immune defenses. Even under the best of circumstances, your immune system may occasionally need extra help in some battles. The toxin saboteurs can weaken or disrupt your immune system. Unfortunately, our world is swimming in both natural and synthetic toxins. A study by Philip Landrigan looked at the statistics over the prior 65 years, listing 82,000 commercial chemicals made since World War II. Almost 3,000 are produced in amounts exceeding 1 million pounds per year. But we have good toxicity information on far less than half of these chemicals. Yet, possibly the most common saboteur is stress, something we all experience in varying amounts. This stress, when unmanaged, weakens our immune system, which can lead to anything from simple shingles outbreak to an open door for a deadly infection. Stress raises cortisol, which if continues to be elevated for a prolonged time, weakens the immune cellular team. Stress prevents barriers from healing, leaving doors open for invaders. Our world, between naturally created toxins like mold toxins and the synthetic toxins we pour into our environments, can be a perilous place to operate an immune system. The power of mold toxins to suppress the immune system can be seen in the pharmaceutical industry's harnessing of some mycotoxins as immunosuppressants. Cyclosporin and mycophenolate are examples of immune drugs taken from the mold toxin world. In addition to these toxic saboteurs, missing supplies may mean our teams operate at a lower efficacy. Immune cells not only need the same nutrients as other cells, but need higher amounts of certain nutrients during battles. Vitamins like C and D, along with the mineral zinc, stand out as essential supplies that we need to assess and maintain. They require ongoing attention as the needs are dynamic and individualized for different people. At the very least, having your doctor check you for vitamin D levels to optimize, rather than aiming at the standard just enough level of 30, is a good starting point. For zinc, you should be sure you're eating sufficient amounts of nuts and seeds, or consider a daily supplement. For vitamin C, daily citrus fruit intake or 500 milligrams from a supplement can provide a starting point for immune benefit. You may want to increase this during an active infection. After saboteurs are kicked out and supplies are stocked, we can look to reinforcements for that extra kick. This can speed up an already successful battle or turn the tide when momentum is going in the wrong direction. Both natural and pharmaceutical reinforcements have their own roles. Natural herbs like garlic, olive leaf, and others modulate our immune defenses to offer many benefits. While they will never get the research dollar attention they deserve, enough studies support their efficacy and their safety. Garlic can fight bacterial, viral, and fungal infections. Coconut oil or its derivative monolaurin can help fight at least fungal infections like yeast and possibly fight viral infections as well. Pharma options then come into play when the battle is raging beyond what supplies and natural remedies can overcome. We don't resort to these medicines for every little smoke signal of infection, but when the battle rages too hot, they may turn the tide enough for our immune system to regain the upper hand. Since these require prescription, a patient's primary responsibility is to recognize when they need to ask for help. Once the clinician agrees and the prescription is ordered, knowing how to prevent antibiotic side effects is important after the infection is vanquished. To have the best chances of immune success, we must know when and how to use both these natural and pharma options. We must avoid misuse and combine the best of both worlds of medicine. Ignoring either the natural or the pharma options may increase the chance of our defeat by the microbial enemy. In order to learn proper use and timing, we begin with discernment, but finish with practice and the skills of experience. By discerning your immune system's condition, your enemy's tactics, and the battle's momentum, you can sort through what is best for you. There are many websites promising immediate results. There are many public and private battles between conventional medicine and natural medicine. You need a method, a system to distinguish the good ideas from the not so good. With all the noise, it is hard to distinguish between the trustworthy voices and the untrustworthy voices. Furthermore, you need to distinguish what you need for your health situation, not just what the average neighbor needs. You're different in so many ways from the average Jack or the average Jill. Our immune systems are intentional and designed, but exhibit many nuances, and thus what is best for you is rarely simple. By building knowledge, learning discernment, and practicing application, you can grow in strength and confidence against the enemies. We can practice these by working through case studies. In my immune course, I provide many real-life examples of how to apply the knowledge. At the end, I walk through 2 longer case studies. Case studies are stories of a patient's health journey, from problem through resolution and how they reach restoration. Practicing in these case studies allows one to develop their skills in a safe environment other than their own health before applying to your own health. So, real-life examples include: you read a health magazine and see an ad about boosting your immune system resilience with their supplement. Should you buy it? Your doctor recommends a medicine for a 101 fever and cough that you have had for 3 weeks. Should you take it? Your spouse asks you where you want to go out for dinner. Will you choose inflammation or longevity? Let's take a quick example and work it out. Take hypothetical Hannah, a 39-year-old mother of 3 children, under age 12, living in the Midwest. Hannah puts up with her yearly winter viruses her kids bring home from school. 2 of her kids get over the worst of the bugs pretty quickly, but little Susie drags out her systems much longer each time. Hannah ends up missing a few days of work each winter between her own symptoms and staying home with Susie. She tried leaving Susie a few times with Grandpa, but Grandpa's smoking habit seems to make it worse for Susie. Hannah is heading into another winter, hoping COVID quietens down and the flu decides to skip a yearly tour. She wonders if there is something else she could be doing besides asking the pediatrician for another antibiotic prescription. You're talking to her in Mother's Day out and listening to her woes. What might you tell her? Of course, you don't want to ruffle feathers, but she is asking for help. You've noticed some benefits from focusing on healthier eating yourself over the past year. You mentioned that you and your kids made it through last winter with less viral annoyance, and wonder if it is your healthier diet. You aim for more of a low-inflammatory whole foods diet with organic fruits and veggies, but far less processed options. Hannah ponders in silence for a minute, and then expresses doubts on how far she could go with that dietary advice with her hubby. You think for a moment about offering the standard advice of take some zinc, C, and D. You know that although these suggestions are true and may be helpful, they will only go a small step towards helping Hannah and Susie. Instead, you opt to press a little science into Hannah's thoughts that you learn in your Immune Prepper course. You only have another 10 minutes, but introduce Hannah to the concept that her body has an immune system designed to fight these viruses. You tell her that the cells of this system don't work as well when we eat inflammatory foods or allow toxins into our bodies. Inflammation can arise from artificial ingredients in processed foods or from changes made by the processing itself. Toxins like pesticides and herbicides can hitch a ride with non-organic veggie choices and change the bacteria living in our GI tract. This can further disrupt our immune system as it depends on good bacteria in the gut to keep it strong. Last but not least, if a virus still breaks in and you tell Hannah to consider some garlic as a good antibacterial and antiviral before resorting to the pediatrician's prescriptions. Your time of motherly quiet is about to end, and you want to end on a positive note. You congratulate her on recognizing that the grandpa's cigarette smoke is best avoided. It does worsen asthma and may worsen mucus during viral infections. You leave Mother's Day out, hoping Hannah can take some baby steps forward due to your quick lesson on our immune system. What will you tell Hannah next week? At least follow up on whether or not she followed through. If she did follow through, congratulate her on small changes. This kind of practice helps us all to learn and to apply what we have learned. It is how a movement builds and changes the paradigm of fearing infections to practicing self-defense with confidence. To answer these questions with confidence, you don't have to be an immunology PhD. However, you must know enough basics to understand the language and assess the battlefield. You must be able to discern your battlefield and prepare the battlefield before combat commences. Then, you must apply this wisdom to your unique situation. And finally, when you achieve victory, step back and share your wisdom with others. We return to the vision of a movement of immune preppers, readying themselves and spreading the message against fear. By this point, you have done the hard work of learning, discerning, and applying. You're now equipped for a variety of immune situations. You're experienced in discernment and in wielding your immune weapons. You are aware and prepared, but not afraid. You'll read a headline about B cells and antibodies without glazing over or falling for propaganda. You will know enough to detect many untruths in the headlines and the marketing lines. You won't get worked up by the headlines and will be able to help calm others. Your inventory is more than a top 5 list of supplements to swallow. Instead, you have a toolbox of immune weapons ready for action, and you know how to use them effectively. Your list of dietary do's and don'ts goes beyond a list of rules you break when cravings overwhelm you. Instead, you know why you or others should make nutritional choices. You have more than a phone number for the local ER. Again, you have your own weapons and know how to use them. You can practice self-defense with confidence, and you can change the public's paradigm of responding to infectious threats. Make a commitment today. Don't let another pandemic scare you into hiding. Don't let others around you be afraid. Engage not only with the microbial enemy, but with neighbors who are afraid in order to set them free. Don't wait for others to do this. Don't blindly trust others. Media, conventional medicine, politicians, big pharma, marketing. Engage the battle for yourself and others. And grow the movement of immune preppers by sharing the message and the method. Take the next step, not the old way. Don't go back and ask your mainstream doctor for another prescription. Don't look for an online degree program that you don't have time for. Besides, the traditional immunology course won't equip you with the whole story. Don't spend hours surfing Dr. Google, and don't stick your head in the sand. The new way? Try a functional immune prepper course with me. Learn from a functional medicine expert. Learn from a practicing MD who is not trying to sell you a supplement from my shelf, who focuses your education just on what you need to know rather than a million pointless details, who leads you in an increasing depth of application and has set up a community of like-minded immune preppers to encourage you in the journey. Be a part of a movement to set yourself and others free from fear. Are you ready for the details? Immune Prepper 101 is a 12-week program, starting with a welcome and science review. From there, every week, you'll have access to a recorded training session for the next week. For 11 weeks, we'll do a Q&A session over Zoom. There will also be other materials available each week in the course. The course proceeds like this with 12 sessions: Introduction and Basic Science Review, Immune Team, Immune Enemies, Immune Barriers, Immune Saboteurs, Medical Discernment Part 1, Immune Signals and Battlefield Activity, Immune Supplies, Immune Reinforcements, Pharmaceutical Reinforcements, Medical Discernment Part 2, and finish week 12 with case studies. What is this worth outside this course setting? 12 video lessons, totaling over 5 hours learning from a certified functional MD, over $2,500 value, 11 Q&A Zoom sessions, over 5 more hours with a certified functional MD, over $2,500 once again, supplemental content, quizzes, bibliographies, and more, hours of saved research time. Just the bibliographies alone for sharing with others who need proof that these methods work. Golden. Peace of mind for yourself, your family, and your neighbors, priceless. Immune Prepper 101 retails for $499. Other courses on the market, for comparison, nothing like this exists. Consults with functional doctors can cost thousands. Bins of unhelpful supplements can cost hundreds of dollars or more. Time alone researching yourself can cost you hours and hours. But because I want this message and this movement to spread around the globe, I'll be offering it to just a small group of people at a cost of $449 for the 12-week course. You can enroll today for just $449. You know your immune system is not ready. You know that others around you are not prepared. Many around you are scared. You know it's time to get aware and be prepared, so you can lead yourself, your family, and your neighbors out of the fear. Here's what you can do today. Learn about your immune team and your infectious enemies. Identify saboteurs like toxins and stress in your life and remove them. Know your immune team's necessary supplies and optimize them. This includes vitamin D, vitamin C, and zinc. Reinforce your immune team by learning how to use garlic, olive leaf, more zinc, and other natural reinforcements. Don't forget a low-inflammatory diet and a balance of exercise and rest. If you want to take another step forward, go sign up for my free immune e-booklet at www.sfmempower.com. If all you do is apply these principles in a pattern of know, discern, apply, you will see results in weeks. But if you keep applying the principles over a lifetime, it will lead towards a healthier, more abundant life and away from fear. And that's why you should jump into Immune Prepper right now. It's just $449, and you can join the program by going to sfmempower.com at that website. Enrollment closes on limited to 50 slots. Wait, it's not over. There's more for you right here and right now. At the very least, the skills of discernment which you develop for immune health will spill over into other healthcare choices. You can apply the same principles of discernment to any health decision. The benefits build every time you discern and apply. The more you practice, the more skillful you become. The knowledge about saboteurs open your eyes to the effects of toxins on your health. Look at Environmental Working Group, their website, to learn how to protect yourself and your family. If you already suffer from an immune condition, take the foundational principles and dig further into that specific area of need. If allergic disease is one of those, go here for a $1 offer on a $100 series prepping you with natural allergy remedies. It includes a 45-minute group Q&A session with me to answer your questions at the end. If autoimmune, leaky gut, or other immune issues plague you, stay tuned for future classes. If you find masks an intriguing topic, check out my blog series on Unmasking the Truth. There you will find patterns of discernment and dialogue so that you and others can move towards the truth instead of butting heads over emotions and opinions regarding masks. We also have a blog series on natural potential COVID therapies and the research behind them. And last but not least, our SFM Empower site spotlights our Immune Prepper 101 course, along with providing regular educational blogs surrounding important immune topics. Okay, that's it. If we never meet again, you have a starting point and a method of reading your own roadmap to immune health. Don't turn back to the old way. If you have immune-related questions, send them through SFM Empower contact page. Tell me what you want to know about your immune health, and I will work on answering your questions so you can grow your knowledge and discernment. Fear not. Be aware and be prepared for pandemics, flu season, school bugs, or media hype. Join the movement and change the paradigm. Be prepared for 2020 and beyond. Enroll today for our next Immune Preppers 101 class at sfmempower.com.